It doesn't hurt to mention that Senate Bill 1243 is officially out of the picture now, too.
Yay.
So, fuck Meekoff and all that bullshit.
Yeah, fuck Meekoff.
Why don't you explain to people exactly what bill you're speaking of, Jamie Lowe? Because I know there's a lot of always danger in the lame duck sessions. There was several bills that were, up for hurting, but explain which one, what the one you're talking about.
Senate Bill 1243 was introduced by Meekoff and destined for his own committee, and it essentially just gutted all the work that we just accomplished by
Prop 1.
Passing Prop 1 in November.
Such as
It would
removing the ability to
grow at home, removing the micro businesses,
Right.
removing the ability to do the local initiatives, essentially just
taxing the
to
tax
re-
distributions.
right. You are correct.
And I was really upset about that.
Sure, everything about it makes no sense. Nothing about it is good. Nothing about it is what the people just said was okay with them by nearly 57%. And they had also lost their bid, the same people, to try to adopt the bill early so they could gut it as they did minimum wage and sick time leave. So
fuck Meekoff.
we dodge that one and we go into a new session with many new people and new leadership, a different set of conditions. And I think things look better moving forward than they have for the last few years.
Oh, things look most excellent from the top, as long as the candidates hold up to where we think they should be. I mean, stranger things have happened than a candidate flips, but I don't feel that's going to happen here.
And
I don't want
Meekoff
anybody to
and
start
Jones
screaming,
and
"Oh my
another
God, it's not going to happen."
A handful of people that are term limited, so there's fresh people in there. The House and the Senate are still have a Republican majority, but there's like new people in there. The gerrymandering districts can't be relied on forever anymore. The state leadership won't just go along with whatever they want to do. So it's a new time now. We need are some sensible people. They'd be fine to be any party. Just be sensible on these issues.
Well,
and we'll be all right.
what I think is interesting, if the gerrymandering is not commanding the day, I mean, it almost demands some sense of bipartisanship, right? You know what I mean? If you're not like, screw you, there's no cross the aisle anything. It's just party. Then you're just not going to have you're going to have an unfunctioning. So that's it's always been the problem with the gerrymandering issue. But all right, so bills didn't pass. That was one that didn't pass. And of course, the thing I wanted to say was, just like the oddity and concepts of the lame duck, there is also other things that outgoing agents, elected officials are doing, such as filling vacancies in government positions because of the civil servant rule. So when you have an office that's budgeted year 2018 with X amount of dollars for employees, and towards the end of the year you're down 10 because you didn't want to, whatever, you may hire some people and put them in that position because the incoming new administration is then compelled to keep them on.
Or they're appointed for a certain period of time, and that's not changed until that position needs to be filled again.
And that's one of the points I was trying to make. It's not as easy for... There's effective ways that the outgoing administration, just like the lame duck, some of these government elected officials can have the same kind of effect on the officer leaving by tactics. That's not to say that the both parties do it. It's not one party over the other. I mean, it's a very vicious time in politics, so you're more likely to see it now than ever, and not even bat an eye. But in the same breath, while that's going on right now, there's no question that Granholm did that on her exit, and Mike Cox complained about it, and it's all which came first, the chicken or the egg, but it's all retaliatory at this point. So and whatever budget surplus, if even that's a thing, that could be used and considered for those monies are being burnt at a fast pace too. It just it's just politics and the challenges of what the new administration are going to be going through. But I will say this. There was an article in one of these business things the other day. Rick maybe got in there, but they actually, I forgot the guy's name is, I don't know. I'll think of it in a second. But they were discussing how slow the licensing process has been. How very, very slow the licensing process has been. And I think Robin was quoted in there, and I was got a couple of jabs in. But they got a quote from either Whitmer or from her office, which said, "We're very aware of that situation and are looking into fixing it." But instead of saying no comment, you know what I mean?
Well, they are very aware of it, and they've been vocal about some of the
Well,
things
that's
they
what I'm
would like
saying.
to do. I mean, I say they, the Attorney General and the Governor, both talked about looking at what's going on there.
And that is really the other major. I mean, I said there's a lot of other things, but is that the major issue right now in Michigan cannabis reform or whatever? Or, I mean,
it's one of them.
The state government now. I mean, it's thrown in the towel that it can't grow marijuana, can't license to grow. They need the caregivers still, and they're going to have to realize at some point in time that
if they would disband that silly ass board, they wouldn't have a problem.
Well,
wouldn't that be great?
no, I don't know that the board's going to go as far as to elect caregivers, but I'm saying, can't there? I mean, doesn't this whole inability of them to be able to, I mean, like just for example, do you think what's the capabilities of some of the types of people that are capable of getting a license and passing the threshold and the scrutiny have the immediate capability to grow 1,500 plants and produce it? I mean, give me a break, right? And who's going to get into that unless they have an interest? You know what I mean? You get hiring people for whatever, and fine, but that's a thing down the road, and there's going to be some jobs there. But doesn't it make a lot more sense to, let that aspect of it flourish and not make it, artificial, or at least find a path for individuals that have been growing marijuana for the last 10 years or longer to be able to, enter the market if they want to. And I'm saying this because
Yes.
we're about to go through, when the system kicks in, a very disproportionate price point for patients. I mean, at the moment in time when it happens, that the rules say, okay, well, we are now going to punish licensors, applicants, and people with licenses who are taking cannabis from caregivers. Up to this point, we're not doing this in this recent ruling, but now we're going to. So you must buy it from the state caregivers or state growers license on the state market. And that per pound price is not going to be the same that they've been buying from the caregivers.
It's like double, Michael.
Double, triple,
Yeah.
whatever. And then they're going to want to,
Pounds.
that's the wholesale
Double.
price.
Yeah, wholesale. Before taxes and before, yeah.
So
And supply and demand. There's a big
It's always
demand
been a
and very
problem
little
lifting
supply.
off every time
They're talking $4,000 on
compete
pounds
against that.
from the state right now.
That's
To
normal.
the state license.
The market will
grows.
correct itself.
It
Well,
will, but
will
it's
it?
going to take a while.
Yeah.
So what
Will
are
it?
you supposed to do in
Well,
the
here you
interim?
go.
Go to your
Jim,
caregiver.
Your caregiver.
Jim, the
Yeah.
market will not correct itself if there's 3 licenses. They got to have a lot of licenses.
Well, no,
Wrong.
well, of course,
And
of course.
The licenses have to be increased and exponentially increased for legalization. Because only if you have a true market where there are multiple opportunities in the market to thrive, be great, be better than your competitor, run a better business, grow better cannabis, purchase better cannabis, whatever, it's not going to be organic. And you're not going to be able to, and without recognizing that the driving force shall be or should be the consumer.
It will be the consumer.
Well,
it's
they're not
Eventually,
the laws,
but right away it's not.
the way
I'm
that
saying
it's
to you, the only way this is going to happen is by, I don't want to say flooding the market, but opening up the market for all, for more to participate, and in doing so, they need the caregiver concept of the caregiver to be part of it. Whether it's, registering with their card that they're allowed to bring a certain amount per month, or subject to some kind of tax or whatever. But they've got to just clear that out so that that's an option.
it's not going to happen.
Well,
Remember this, though. The traditional business economics don't apply in this instance, because in traditional business economics, all of the players in the game are regulated market. In this instance, you have an existent black market who, first of all, already owns all of the customers in this market. Second of all, has been there for way, way longer than this new emergent market. And third of all, has price controls set by the consumers, just like we're talking. So what we'll see is that initial launches of distribution centers may struggle. They really might, because the price of the cannabis through the MMFLA system is is going to be so cost restrictive
Exactly.
that people will go to the other effect. So to Michael's point, how do you alleviate that? You put additional cannabis in the system by relicensing caregivers to be able to contribute. You don't have to wait for VB Chesting to grow 1,500
That's what I was
plants
gonna say,
or any of
exactly.
those other places to grow 60,000 plants. You've already got an existing market and an existing supply right there.
Yeah, because Michael, even if there were dozens and dozens and dozens of growers, they cannot produce an instantaneous crop. You're still 5-6 months away from a crop.
Hey, so I just want to take this opportunity to mention that in the beginning, when we started off with some type of a dispensary concept, it was based on the caregiver supplying the inventory.
Right.
It
And then
was.
later from there, out maybe to some commercial stuff to help fill in the gaps and things like that, and to maybe grow out from there. If you make the fundamental basis of the supply, the caregivers, that's a system that's already been working for a really long time. And obviously, in the transition period, without being able to go back to rely on it, these places wouldn't be able to have any inventory right now.
And I think
And that stuff that's $3,500 a pound or whatever, that's shit.
$4
Yeah,
grand
but
we're hearing.
you know
It's
what?
like not good.
I'm gonna-
It's, you know,
And it
tell
looks
you,
terrible, yeah.
The line is going to be once those distributors have tons of product on their shelves and can't get rid of it into the system, and then the state is going to say, we're done. The market is saturated. Now everything can come from our growers and the people that are licensed in our system. And that is when the market will begin to correct itself.
Well, what's to stop them from holding
That's a way
back,
down.
Jim?
That's a ways away.
Yeah,
What's to
it
stop them from
absolutely
holding
is.
back and having a shorted market?
What? What's that?
What's to hold the growers to hold back or conspire to hold back in, providing to the market if that's the only source by which it can come from?
The tracking system?
There's no organization that controls them.
The tracking system. And that's how the state is
No,
going
but I'm
to
saying if they
determine
can.
Unionize.
Yeah. Well, that'll come too.
No,
but
He's
they
saying
don't.
slow
That's
release the
not-
limited
Interesting.
supply in order to create higher demand to bring up the prices, he's saying.
When that's the exclusive market that's being grown from. I'm just saying it just keeps it even. In Colorado, I remember when it first started, it may not be the way now, but the rules were that in order for you to have a retail, you had to be associated with a grow of some kind and processing, but you could buy probably like 20% from other markets, other than, get it in from someplace other than your own. So how bad would that be?
It's not that it would be bad. It's
Sounds
just that in
reasonable.
this political climate, I don't believe the legislature would ever
Yeah,
approve that.
You
Ever.
say that as Laura
I know.
goes into its second year
Laura is not the legislature.
or
of
the cops.
basically codifying the idea that they cannot operate the system unless caregivers
Right.
are bringing their overages. What about this nonsense?
But
What
the
are we talking
end
about?
is
Which has been the
is-
system that's been in place for years.
The end is coming.
Works very well.
How about this? You think the end's coming? Why did the the state treasury department, come out with it? Caregivers have to pay a tax now.
Patients have to pay a tax on all the transactions they do with their individual private care.
This is insane.
They can't-
What government agency came up with
They
this idea?
can't do that.
Really?
Treasury Department.
How will
if
they
they make
enforce
this
that?
call, on,
Self-report.
we're talking about caregivers and patients, right?
I'll send them a report.
Caregivers and patients. First of all, this is so contrary to a
Of
theory
1099,
by which
all
the
you
police have been
motherfuckers.
arresting, which is you're not allowed to make money. How can people be forced to pay some kind of tax on revenue?
I know Harley Sherman was saying there's
It's actually a Headley.
an unfollowed law that when people buy something, on the internet, they're supposed to also voluntarily pay the tax, the state tax.
Yeah, it's
they
called a
would have
use
paid.
tax.
And so it's based on that same theory, I guess.
That's a fucked up theory.
It's a Headley
Well,
violation.
it's ridiculous, yeah, of course. And what Michael was just saying, they argued so long that this can't really be a sale. It could be maybe compensation for the expenses and stuff like that.
Right.
But if that's all it is, then how are you paying sales tax on
Yeah,
it?
you don't pay tax on expenses.
I'm sorry, use
Or
tax on it.
services. You don't pay tax on services, and that's
Right.
kind of a service too.
Yeah,
So now with the licensing implementation,
Mark Brown.
Get on the microphone.
I can't hear you.
now with the licensing implementation, how have they? What's been the recent buzz about the banking?
Banking's so controlled at a federal level. So I just saw a report today that said the federal government knows of about 400 banks throughout the United States of America that are dealing with companies that are dealing in cannabis industries, but they're not making any move to shut them down. So I think as no enforcement action is taken, more people will become more bold I mean, the promise of that kind of huge return on investment is very seductive for financial institutions.
Yeah, they've been reluctant, though, that they don't want to do it.
But if they don't see anybody